are listening to Lagoon Radio.
All right, it's a beautiful morning to you and welcome to Monday. It is Monday, beautiful Monday to you. How you doing? Hope you started your week on a very positive note. Welcome to the newspaper review here on Lagoon Radio, and we're broadcasting live to you from Marina, Lagos, and Lagoon Radio is your number one online gospel radio, and we'll bring you the newspaper review this morning. My name is Olabisi Simidili, okay, and I have some beautiful souls with me here. Their heads are swelling. Okay, I have with me Alao Oluwakoyin Solami.
Oh Jesus, you know about Poruko the boss brain. Good morning, Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Koin Sola.
Yeah, then I have with me Sharp Taiwo Adiola Shabiolegbe. Will be handling the newspaper. Sharp, what are you feeling
Good
like?
morning.
What are you feeling like?
Wait, I'm visiting a final girl today.
Like
Check
it's
it
obvious.
out.
It's obvious your weekend really went well, really.
You can say that again.
And you know, bring something for us from weekend something.
Take it from my body.
Hey, go far. Okay, yeah, you're welcome once again. And in no particular order, we have the Nigerian Tribune, we have the Daily Times, these day papers, the leadership paper, New Telegraph, Blueprint, National Economy, Daily Trust, Nigerian Pilot, News Direct. We have the Daily Independent papers, Nigerian Express, Daily Champion, and Business AM. We'll try as much as possible to take everything, if not all, so that we can keep you updated. Fasten your seatbelt, as I'll start with the Nigerian Tribune. Right at the top of the Nigerian Tribune, the front page of Nigerian Tribune, OAU postgraduate OAU postgraduate students autopsy holds today. And the writer under that says NIPOST Postmaster General says justice will be pursued to logical conclusion. That's on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. I think that's about the autopsy of the OAU students. Yeah, that was found in the bush. Yeah. Then Ekiti 2020 rumpus in Fayemi's cabinet over alleged endorsement of SSG. That's on page 23 of the Nigerian Tribune, and boldly written at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, alleged hidden 19.3 billion naira. Kogi attacks CFCC, demands retraction, links ordeal to Bello's 2023 ambition. You can get the full details on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. As UK-based Save the Children appoints Otedola vice president. That's on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. Oshibajo distances self from 2023 campaign office. That's also on page 24 of the Nigerian Tribune. As federal government proposes 3% from consolidated revenue to fund basic education. That's on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on page 23 of the Nigerian Tribune, why Buhari must act immediately on new electoral bill, CSOs. You can get it on page 23. Fire Gods building used for bunkering in Rivers State. That's on page 27 of the Nigerian Tribune. Every day is for the thief and one day is for the owner. Okay. Then BC Akonde backs doctoral degree. Saturday. That's on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. As drug dealer behind cocaine hidden inside Lagos airport toilet arrested. I can get that on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune. And moving to page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune, how 7 banks Q3 profits surpassed GDP growth rate. If you're interested in dealing with figures and to get updated with growth rate. You can get it on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. And lastly, on Nigerian Tribune, on page 2, Yoruba monarchs elders must talk to Buhari to release Sunday Igboho, says Oluwo of Iwoland.
So moving on to the Daily Times newspaper, on the headline says, fuel and electricity mixed reactions trail IMF advice on subsidies removal. And the rider under that says, fuel electricity subsidies not sustainable, benefits very lean, says experts. NLC cautions against subsidies removal and urges federal government to be wary of IMF prescriptions. You can read up all of these on page 2 of the Daily Times paper. Fidelity Bank moves to the close of the year on a high with Fidelity for You campaign. You can read up all of these on page 2, still same page 2 of the Daily Times. And under the news, Serap sues Buhari over failure to publish names of suspected looters of the 6 trillion naira NDDC funds. This can be found on page 5 of the Daily Times. And under politics, Nigerian in disarray, Buhari must go, PDP BOT chair says. You can read up more on page 3. And under business story, Orito opens up on Nilba oil spill and says efforts in place to address the situation. All of this can be found on page 5 of the Daily Times. Finally, religious freedom violation. Khan questions U.S. government data used to delist Nigeria. All of this can be found on page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper. And that's pretty much about it.
All right, moving on to the This Day newspaper. UK-based Save the Children appoints Otedola vice president. And the writer to the story says, philanthropist elated, says giving the needy children is greatest love of all. The story is right on the front page. Komalafe PIA has offered robust fiscal regime, open investment opportunities in petroleum sector. The story is on page 5 of This Day newspaper. Security expert faults U.S. Army embargo threats against Nigeria. The story is there. You can continue reading on page 5. And boldly written on the front page, 2023. Osinbajo DS Tinubu has support group opens campaign office in Abuja. And the writer to the story says, Tinubu movement keeps mum. You can see the story on page 8 as well. The Monday interview. Ahmed, Nigeria does not have debt problem. What we have is revenue problem. You can see page 20 to page 23 of This Day newspaper. National Convention, APC governors to meet Buhari party leaders. The story is on page 62 of This Day newspaper. I think that will be all except there's a picture at the front page. There's Zenith Bank lights up. I just say Adeogun. And that's the usual thing. It's a yearly thing for Zenith Bank. I don't know if you're familiar with the road.
Yeah.
That'll be all.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the leadership papers. Operational issues delay use of 180 billion naira customs vessel at Lagos Jetty. Can get it on page 7 of the leadership papers. Boldly written on at the front page of the leadership papers. Pressure mounts as PMB to sign Electoral Act amendment. Governors, lawmakers lobby president. CSOs, others make case for assent, say bill reflects people's will. President has 27 days to okay bill. An interest of Nigerians should be paramount, says lawyers. Can get the full details on page 4 of the leadership papers. Army vows to treat bandits as terrorists. Can get that on page 2 of the leadership papers. As AMCON boss wins Public Integrity Award. That's on page 52 of the leadership papers. As Federal Capital Territory teachers vow to continue strike. That's on page 6 of the leadership papers. Sit at home over in Southeast, says Neze. That's also on page 6 of the leadership papers. Basic education to get 3% consolidated revenue fund. Also on page 6 of the leadership papers. I'm moving to page 9. AGF DSS denies seizing El Zakzaki wife's passport. Can get that on page 9 of the leadership papers. That'll be all on the leadership papers.
So moving on to the New Telegraph newspaper this morning, federal government records 4.28 trillion fiscal deficits in 7 months, and half-year expenditure was 5.81 trillion naira. You can read up more on page 3 of the New Telegraph. MPC analyst predicts unchanged interest rates. All of this can be found on page 24 of the New Telegraph. Governors with 2023 interest using EFCC to discredit Bello, Kogi government says, and threatens legal action on alleged hidden sum. You can read up all of this on page 7 of the New Telegraph. APC Caretaker Committee meets Tuesday to decide on convention and zoning. You can read up all of this on page 7. NNPC surcharged FAAC by 67 trillion naira in 6 years, says auditors. Nigerian distributors seek bailout. My apologies. Newspaper distributors seek bailouts for media houses. All of this can be found on page 3. And the major headline here from the Senate President: why criminal students enjoy ethnic and political support, says Africa looking up to Nigeria. You can read up more on page 2. Rivers militant group blows up Ajib facility and cites neglect. Wants company to deal with communities and individual. You can read up all of this on page 3. Government shouldn't establish varsities for political reasons, Afe Babalola says, because and tax EFCC and NUC to clamp down on illegal varsities operators. All of this can be found on page 2. Finally, study link tariff stiffness to hypertension and obesity. You can read up more on all of these on page 30 of the New Telegraph paper.
All right, moving on to the Blueprint newspaper. Zenith Bank heralds Yuletide season with Ajose Adogo Street light up. The stories on page 24. 2022 Hajj not certain, mood on there. Nakon says the stories on the front page, and the writer to it says Commission waiting for MOU with Saudi authorities. Can continue reading on page 6. Fuel scarcity, NMPDRA begins damp down on herring filling stations. The story is on page 23 of the Blueprint newspaper. E-ticketing, NRC targets 22 billion naira revenue in 4 years. This you can find on page 24 of the Blueprint newspaper. And boldly written on the paper: in 1 week, bandits abduct 80 in Zagzaga, Niger community. And the writer to the story says, asked for 150 million ransom. Monarch's brother kidnapped in Kwara. Police for a kidnap of Nasarawa PDP chair, Abuja cleric. Fighter jets hit Sokoto Zamfara camps, kill several in air raids. Kill bandits and bring their corpses, CAS charges troops. All this you can find on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. Still on the paper, Cameroonian separatist attack. Over 20 persons still missing in Taraba, says residents. The story is on page 5. And at the very bottom, Otedola excited on appointment as Vice President UK-based Save the Children. The story is on page 13. Access Bank leads as banks make 403.6 billion naira from fees and commissions. This you find on page 25. 703 local governments still indulge in open defecation in Nigeria, says UNICEF. The story is on page 5. And lastly on the paper, Ogun, 2 cultists arrested for forcefully initiating unwilling students. The story is on page 25, of the Blueprint newspaper. And that'll be all on the paper.
All right, jumping to Daily Trust papers. Ex-Cuba experience killed as gunmen abduct many on Kaduna Abuja Road. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust papers. Boldly written, Kano beats Southeast in VAT collection, and right under that says Yobe collects higher than Ekiti, Edo, others. Abia got 10 times more than it generated. Wow. Claim sharing benefits Northern states more than South erroneous. States will bear the brunt of decentralized collection, says expert. Can get all that on page 5 of the Daily Trust papers. And we have here bandits family trapped as Air Force bombards hideout. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust papers. 3 die in Gombe Monarchs convoy crash. Can get that on page 49 of the Daily Trust papers. And as regards unpaid arrears, Federal Capital Territory teachers insist on strike. Hey, okay, it is where it's us. It's us. Okay, then on page 7, at least that'll be the last one we'll be taking on Daily Trust. Page 7, kill bandits, bring their corpses, weapons, Army chief tells troops. Can get that on page 7 of the Daily Trust papers. And right at the front, there's a pictorial illustration of the value-added tax. You can get the Daily Trust papers and check it out.
So moving on to the Nigerian pilots, militants blow up Ajib facility over alleged neglect, discard to agreement. You can read up all of these on page 8. Court dismisses suit on $300 million Abacha loot. All of these can be found on page 10. Sit at home over. Ohaneze Ndigbo declares Monday sit at home in the southeast over. And other writer says, urges educational institution and businesses in the zone to commence usual activities, says every stakeholder is united in the Release Nnamdi Kanu project. Federal government may withdraw terrorism charges preferred against the detained IPOB leader. All of these and more can be found on page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot newspaper. NDCDC fund, Serap sues Buhari over failure to publish names of looters. Read up more on page 6 of the Nigerian Pilot. Managing director sorry about that, I couldn't speak so clearly. Managing director, managing diversity key to avoiding conflict in Africa, says Jonathan. You can read up on page 5. Nigeria must improve tax administration, VP Osibajo says. All of this can be found on page 26. 22.7 billion naira earned allowances. Sanu rejects sharing formula. All I see is another strike. 4.4 trillion debt. AMCON sends 1,000 top defaulters list to NAS. You can read up all of this on page 26. And 20 states yet to key into National Housing Program, says federal government. You can read up more on page 8. And finally, TNC commences rehabilitation of old circuit breakers in nationwide substations. All of this can be found on page 28.
All right, moving on to the Nigerian News Direct. A resident protests murder of OAU postgraduate student. The story is on page 29. Youth child season comes to life in Lagos as Zenith Bank lights up at just Adeogun Street.
I think we need to take it all to that place. Like, it's all over.
I saw a video on my status this morning. Like, wow, it has always been beautiful.
Yeah. It has always really.
Story, well, it's on page 11. Drug dealer behind cocaine hidden in Lagos airport toilets arrested. It's on page 30. You can get the story there. And still on the paper, fresh trouble in South. Militants blow up Ajib oil facility, and the writer to the story said threaten stiffer attacks if demands are not met. This story is on page 30. You find it there. And Nimbe oil spillage. We are seeking foreign expertise to halt leakage. ITU. The story is on page 19. Outstanding 4.4 trillion naira exposure. Kuru submits list of top 1,000 AMCON debtors to National Assembly. The story is on page 2. 19.3 billion naira bailout scandal. Mischievous elements hired EFCC to discredit Yaya Bello, commissioner. The story is on page 3. Governor Abiodun releases 2 billion naira to pay deductions from workers' wage. The story is on page 3. Fidelity Bank restates commitment to excellence with Fidelity for You campaign. This you can find on page 30, and that'll be all on the Nigerian News Direct newspaper.
Direct primaries, APC governors in last-minute move to stop electoral bill are sent as parties should decide mode of primaries to adopt, says Sagay. You can get that on the inside of the Daily Independent papers. Still about sit at home, go about your normal business, Ohaneze tells Southeast residents. residents, and boldly written on the front page of the Daily Independent papers. FX woes would limit economic growth investment, says analyst. And the writer under that says affect effectiveness of reforms elsewhere in the economy. One dead, several injured as Alaja Ogbejo renew hostilities. That's on page 6 of the Daily Independent papers. VON Director General aligns with Mbazulike Amechi, asks Buhari to free Kanu. That's on page 6 of the Daily Independent. Now, free Kanu, free Sunday. So I think that was trending right now. Free Kanu as you free Sunday. Okay, it is well. Okay, moving on to still on the Daily Independent papers. UK-based Save the Children appoints Otedola vice president. That's on page 2 of the Daily Independent. And amid slow passenger traffic, Nigerian Airlines invest 1.293 trillion naira in aircraft acquisition. You know, there's some amount of money you will call and you feel it in your teeth, like 1.293 trillion naira. Wow, in aircraft acquisition. And the right under says 25 additional brand new airplanes expected in 2022-2023. 25 additional brand new airplanes as of stakeholders differ on indigenous carriers' huge investment. Can still get that on inside the Daily Independent papers. Fire incidents destroy property worth millions of naira in Rivers State. That's on page 6, and I think this is actually linked to the bunkering site. Then Buhari, Khan, PFN, Mon, CPM's Reverend Obiora Ezekiel. That's on page 7 of the Daily Independent papers. May so rest in peace.
Amen. Moving on to the Nigerian Express papers, COVID-19, food security under threat in Nigeria, World Bank says on page 15. You can find the story there. Mystery death in Ife Hotel, our bank statements and phone exposed suspects. OAU students' death with candles, Abuja lawyer's mother in Lagos Hotel. Anyways, you can find up all of this on the page 10. And boldly written on the pages of the Nigerian Express papers, why I declared for presidency, IM says, and the writer under that says, I will be more than just an Igbo president, says APC, disappointed by the success of the PDP convention. All of this can be found on page 3. Nigerians miscalculated on Buhari, Reverend Eragbai says on page 19 of the Nigerian Express. Agitations for self-determination, a cry for help. Ex-President Wale Oshun says. You can read up on page 21. And finally, let's ignore that and move on to the next papers.
All right, moving on to the Daily Champion newspaper. At the very top, we have the story of Fidelity Bank restate commitment to excellence with Fidelity for You campaign. The story is on the front page and you can continue reading on page 6. Still on the paper, we have the story of Zenith Bank light up Ajese Adeogun, still on page 15. ITO responds to Santa Barbara well spill. The story is on page 19 of the Daily Champion newspaper. GDP Q3 growth. Expert raise concerns over low level of productivity in non-oil sector. And the writer to the story says, as ex-LCC high boss urges federal government to de-risk investment in real sector, it's an improvement on previous growth. Nzekwe. All this you can find on page 6 of the paper. Serap sues Buhari over failure to publish names of suspected looters of the 6 trillion naira NDDC fund. The story is on page 6. Sit at home is over. Go back to schools, business. Ohaneze urges Southeast residents. And the story is on page 5. And at the very bottom of the paper, Oshun 2022. I'm not distracted. God is in control, says Oyetola. Okay, and that'll be all on the front page of the paper.
Okay, and the last one we'll be taking, I think that's the last. We exhausted everything, so clap for us. Okay, that's the Business AM. Maybe I'm taking this because I love business. Expert weigh in as Seplat CEO talks up gas for Nigeria's carbon reduction. as right under that says, but country must establish grid base for its energy transition as part one of their consequences of Buhari's 2060 energy transition. And we are in 2021. So 2060 energy transition. What a dream. Okay, we can get that on page 2 of the Business AM, and boldly written CBN MPC's last call for 2021, but all as now fully exhausted. Committee to keep pro-growth objectives intact. Market stakeholders with muted reaction. Can get that also on page 2 of the Business AM papers, and the summary, the old summary is at the right hand side of the front page of the papers, talking about the global concern over inflation, finance and investment, as the diaspora remittances that is back on track, energy, power and renewable as Energies geometric 50 million naira power deal, and the company and businesses Tetra Packs recycling and awareness. I think recycling it's been the thing now for some years, and it's still existing. So technology and innovation as NCC for sustainable SNS segment, that's on page 20. Transport business about Toyota on quality maintenance, can get out on page 21 of Business AM. Commodities and agriculture, better valuations for Nigerian cocoa. I think we really need to visit this in our agricultural sector, because cocoa is money. Or let me say, cocoa was money, and I believe it's still money. So you can get it on page 26 of the Business AM. As vaccine production needs flexibility. That's about the unequal access to COVID-19 vaccines. We can get that on page 13 of Business AM. And think small to fight climate change. What can you do to fight climate change? Think small. What is that thing you need to think small about? Can get it on page 10 of the Business AM. And that'll be all on the newspaper review here on Lagoon Radio. Thank you for joining us on today's edition of Newspaper Review. I think by 10 a.m. we'll be having the Moment of Truth. Stay connected to Lagoon Radio. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria, Twitter and Instagram at Lagoon Radio NG, for more news update on Lagoon.news. And if you need to put faces to the lovely voices you've been hearing here at Lagoon Radio, just go to our YouTube channel on Lagoon TV, subscribe and turn on your notifications. My name is Olabisi Simidede, okay, and it's a bye from me to you. Can you say bye to our viewers?
Bye.
Shall be saying bye. All right, stay connected. Have a nice day.
Good morning.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.